Hey, everybody, we're going to look at a few ways to use Google Trends in your history class. Here we go. So think about the larger question of what does our search history tell us about ourselves as individuals and as a society? So that might be a good starter with your students. Further hooks that you could bring in. So asking that question of what information could we gather from studying search history? So what kind of insights could we gather? Also think about if your students want to say, what would be your year in search? What are the top 10 things you search for this year? And then lastly, what if someone saw that in a future generation? What would that tell us about the student as an individual? The next thing I would have y'all do, depending on when you were watching this, but the closest year is 2021 for when I'm making this. So try and guess the previous year in search and have students write it down. Obviously, like always, we want them to explain their rationale. So this could be done in groups or individually. But as always, I would try and do as many groups as possible just to see some of the thought processes and having students explain their thinking. How many did you get right? Then what you can do is have conversations about once they have the list, what does that tell us about American society in 2021? Did anything surprise them? Was there anything on the list or off the list that kind of surprise them a little bit? Another thing you can do is compare to previous years. So the good thing about Google Trends is we have a lot of data to look at. So you could actually talk about continuity and change between the previous year. So in this case, 2020 to 2021. You want to incorporate the themes or enduring understandings. You could also say, which one of these do you see throughout? Maybe one more than the other. And once again, the cool thing about using this is there's more than one right answer. So as long as students are backing up their ideas with some type of evidence from the list and explaining their rationale, that is social studies in action. You could also compare the United States to the world. So thinking about maybe global context and also just having students realize that the US is just a part of the world. So there are some similarities, but there are some huge differences as well. And then we can take it a step further and have students look into historical trends in general. So these could be time periods where the internet did not exist yet. So I put an example here so you could guess what year this might be and have students guess, based off of what you just learned, or maybe it's a future unit. So just another way you could change it up a little bit. And then obviously we would have students make their own. So that might be a cool thing. And you don't have to do a year. You could also do a decade. You could do a person or anything else you could think of. But getting students to think about what a search history sort of would tell us about that particular time period or person.